If someone says you need to learn every note and scales and arpeggios all over the fretboard before you actually attempt to improv, they're lying. I got a quick guitar workout that's gonna teach you to map out your improv so your leads stop sounding like scales. And all you need to know is the first pentatonic position in minor and barred chords. That's it. This is foolproof, but the only way to actually get good at guitar is by playing guitar. So grab your axe, follow along, let's go. The first note you play over a chord is a huge deal. You know, whether you land on the root, a third, a fourth, a seven, it sets the tone for your lick because root, third, fifth, they don't add anything new. They're already in the chord. How can you find these notes without memorizing the whole fretboard? We'll look at barred chords. Specifically today, we'll look at the barred chords that are around the first minor pentatonic shape. Let's take this A minor. If you know the cage system, you know that's E-shaped A minor chord, right? E, A. My intervals are root, fifth, root, a minor third, another fifth, and another root. If instead I'm playing this G chord right next to it, I still got root, fifth, root, a major third, another fifth, another root. So even if I don't know the names of these notes, I understand their intervals and their relation with the chord. So that's how you can easily find the root, the third, and the fifth in every chord. Shortcut! Now the second, fourth, sixth, and seventh degree, they're not in the chord. So whenever you land on it for, let's say, a fourth, it's left suspended. Sounds good, but there's some tension in there. It doesn't want to stay here. It wants to resolve to a root, a third, or a fifth. And that's 80% of your job right there. You land on a cool note and you make it resolve to a root, third, or a fifth. Knowing every note on the fretboard will not make you any good at improv because you'll only have a theoretical idea of what you're supposed to play. But we need to train our ears and our fingers to expect these notes and to land there. And that's what we're about to do. After just one workout like this, you're gonna start to target these notes by ear intuitively. Not because you'll have memorized the whole thing, but because you'll have trained yourself to hear those, expect those, and you'll start seeing them on the board. You know, it's a lot easier to remember that over this G chord, you can play this flat 7 on these two spots than to remember the name of the note. It's not what you know, it's what you can play. I go through this short process every time I want to jam over a backing track. It takes about 5 to 10 minutes tops, and it maps the whole fretboard for me with the notes that I want to play. Then I can let loose and jam for a long time, and my licks are going to be insanely more interesting because of this. So we'll go through each exercise, and I'll leave the backing track for you for a couple minutes at the end so you can give it a shot yourself. We're in A minor, and I'm jamming over the fourth chord, D minor, and the seventh chord, G. And step one, we're just going to find the root of both chords. I'm committing these to memories, right? So don't spend more than a minute on this. Just play every root once or twice, then you're good to go. Step two, we're gonna locate the thirds. And while you watch this, tell me if you notice something in relation to these thirds and the pentatonic scale. You noticed it, right? None of these thirds are in my pentatonic scale. So I wouldn't know that I can play them if I didn't look at these barred chords. Freaking sploosh, right? So now we're gonna play the fifths. So we found all of the roots, third, and fifths of our two chords. And these notes, they all sound great. They feel right at home over these chords, but they don't add in anything, so they're kind of stale and boring. So now I'm gonna target the twos, and I'm gonna resolve to the one each time. There's no specific rule for this. You know, you can resolve on a third, on a fifth, it doesn't matter. I just pick the root because it's right next to it. Now, when you practice this on your own in another key with other chords, you might get to a situation where you don't know where the second is because it's not in your pentatonic scale, right? People that know the modes of the major scale, they can find it very quickly, but not everybody else does. And it's fine. And if that's your case, I'll only say this: try both and pick the one you prefer. That's it. You know, don't be afraid to test shit out and play wrong notes. Nobody's gonna buzz you out because you played a note that's not in the scale. You know, figuring out what sounds good to your ear and forging your own styles is what it's all about, really. You know, there are two chords in the minor scale or mode that actually their two is just one fret away from the root. That's the right note to play. But you might choose to play a regular two frets away because to your ears it's gonna sound better. And you know what? There's not a nerd in the world that has the right to tell you that you can't play this note because it's not in the scale. It's your music, and you choose what emotion you want to convey and how. That's it. Rant over. Next step, I'm gonna target the 4 and resolve on the 3rd. And in both of these cases, the D minor and the G, well, the 4 is already in that scale, so it's easy for this one. Now let's hit all the 6 and resolve to the 5. So like the 2nd, the 6 can either be right next to the 5th or 2 frets away. And very rarely do I want to linger on a flat 6 that's right next to the 5th because it is so tense. So usually I'll play a major 6 even in chords where the 6 would actually really be next to the 5th in the scale, but I don't like that sound. Next we hit the 7 and resolve to the root. So in this case, the D minor's got a flat 7. It's in our pentatonic box, so it's easy. The G7, though, it's not in there. Now, of course, I'm cheating. I know my modes. I know it's F. I know it's a flat 7 on that G chord. But in your case, if you didn't know this, you could have tried both, a major 7 or a flat 7, so 1 fret or 2 frets away from that root. And you could have liked both, really. It's all up to you. Like I said, if it sounds good to you, it is good. But if you're interested in this particular case, that G chord, the 7th chord of the A minor, it's the only major chord that has a flat 7 in that scale. Makes it sound really dramatic. Now, you don't need to know all of this to practice this kind of stuff, but just know that in my case, knowing what chord to play in any given scale is probably my favorite theory to know. Now, finally, we've mapped out the spicy notes, right? The 2, 4, 6, and 7. We can let the backing track go and improv freely without being too cerebral about things. And because I've taken just a little bit of time to map out these, I find myself gravitating towards these notes a lot more. You know, I also start to blend licks that I know with these new notes, right? For example, you might be playing this A minor triad a lot. I know I do. And when you land on that D minor, you know, the 5, the 3rd, they're in my chord already. So all I need to do is add that 6 in there and adapt my lick to this D minor chord. Now, all of this we've done with 1 pentatonic box and 2 barred chords. Now imagine what we could do if we blend all 5 cage chord shapes with the other pentatonic position around the neck. A lot. This is what I consider intermediate level theory. Grab the free essential guitar theory guide to learn all of this, but also what chords to play in a scale, the triads all over the neck. The link is down there. I'll leave the backing tracks rolling for a few minutes. You can try this. Give it a shot and tell me how it went. Guys, I appreciate you watching the whole thing till the end. Cheers.